My name is Tarek, and I play for CLG, and we will be the best team in 2016. Welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel.
Cloud9 have now officially announced that they have picked up the 5-man lineup formerly known as ATK, which was most recently in the news briefly for managing to come 9th to 12th at the EPL Season 10 finals, beating a couple of notable teams, North, G2, along the way. Now, this lineup was one which was set within ATK on the 12th of September in 2019, so not that long ago, a few months back. It has Sonic and JT, who are South African players you may remember from the Bravado gaming lineup, later Denial. Then it has Floppy, Motum, however you're supposed to say his name, and Orsi, who were former Team Singularity players in early 2019, a lesser NA team. And the coach is TC, also of Bravado. I won't say fame, but he used to be the coach of Bravado. Now, in this video, first and foremost, I want to say thanks to my boy Maui Snake, who you might have seen as an analyst for Epicenter, because he follows the NA scene, he's deep within it. He's been around this kind of level of player, and he gave me a few insights to start me out on my quest for this video. Then what I did was go back, I watched every single game ATK played at the EPL Season 10 finals. So here are my thoughts on them as players, as a lineup, because normally when you're putting a lineup together, it's all speculation, because you've seen those players individually, but you're trying to figure out what role would they play, how would they work together. But I've actually been able to watch this lineup play games already, look up all the stats on them, and so here we go. Now in this lineup, the best players by far, by the way, are Floppy and Sonic. Sonic, interestingly enough, I thought this was a very unusual part. In this team, the primary AWPer is the player Orsi, but I actually think, and Maui Snake also said the same thing, Sonic is easily the best AWPer in this team. If you go back when he was in Bravado, and then later on when he played in Envy, he was a way better AWPer than this Orsi guy. It actually seemed like that's where his real potential could lie, even though he's certainly a good player with the rifles. Sonic, crucially for me, is the best player in this team. And the reason why is in terms of raw skill, it's between him and Floppy. But the difference is, Sonic is land proven. Floppy is way better online. If you put him online and you put him against lesser opponents, yeah, he'll go off. He looks to me as if he has issues though, or has had issues in his first few outings when he's offline and against the tier 1 teams. I mean, you look at his run in EPL Season 10 in the 2 phases that were offline but not the finals, and then the LAN finals. He had some serious issues putting up numbers against Team Liquid, Renegades, as in the team that's now 100 Thieves, Mouse Sports. These teams ate him up and he had problems when playing those games. Now, if we go to Sonic, though, we'll start out there, the best player. He is the best player overall in this team. Even the stats confirm it. Over the entire EPL season, he was plus 33 in differential. He's a hybrid player. Like I said, he can play the AWP. In this team, he's more of a secondary AWPer, if anything. The other reason it baffles me is the AWP is the gun he has the second most kills in his career with. So you go look elsewhere, a bunch of the others are hybrids, but lesser hybrids. And the Orsi guy just isn't that impressive if you ask me. So this guy's a hybrid player, but he's an explosive player. He's got pretty legit mechanics, I'd say. I wouldn't say he's a monster AWPer. He's a good AWPer though. And so I think this is a guy he's the guy who's the game changer for you. He's the guy, if he has the top frag, you have the chance to win. Now, I will say an interesting detail that I got from talking to people was perhaps sometimes his decision making's a little bit dodgy. Like sometimes he looked like he made smart moves, lurks, pushes. He definitely liked to push around and reposition a lot though in the games that I saw. So I can sort of see why Envy might have gone against him and went to bench him. Like I'll give you an example. When I was watching a game where he was playing on Mirage, so obviously not in this team, there was a round I saw where he came up the ladder on CT side over towards the B site, and even though the terrorists he knew were in the underpass area, he popped the vent anyway and just let them kill him through it. So that's just an example there of like the skills are there, but is the brain there entirely? I would hope he's going to develop beyond this though, and that's part of it. Interestingly enough, within this team, he tends to play within the entry pack, which appears to be in this squad of Motum, JT, and then Sonic. So fair enough, they use his skills in that way, and Terrace side is where they've been at their best, so it makes sense as to where he's positioned. Seems like generally, aside from not AWPing much on practically any maps, he's the guy who actually seems to be well positioned, and the squad seems to know where to put him. Floppy is an interesting case Because watching this guy, I actually sort of get what some of the things people might have seen in ATKs, because actually he does look like he could be a legit player in the future when he's been properly blooded offline and he's had enough chances to play the tier 1 teams. That's when you could see something from him, because he looks like skill-wise, he actually might be the best skill-wise player in the team. Also seems to have fairly good decision-making, knows where to position himself, what to do after a kill. The big problem for him is he's just a guy who had his issues offline, like I say, against the best teams. The problem is when you've been good, but you've been dominating all the opponents at your level, you go against the top teams and you try to do the same shit. Like you buy, this is why I hate that angle of it. You've got to be confident, just believe that you're the best. Yeah, you try that, and then you go up against the best guys, and now you're taking aim duels against Robs or fucking Woxic, and they're just smashing your face off. And you're thinking, well, I've got to stay confident, guys, and you go back there again. This is why actually it takes experience, and it takes understanding that what better players are like and why they're better than you at the moment, even if individually maybe you have aim that's comparable. But certainly a player with promise, I feel like, in the future, and arguably the best rifler on the team, even though at the moment Sonic outfrags him, but that's just because at the moment Floppy isn't quite as good overall as you'd expect. He's certainly still a key player. Sonic and Floppy are the players you want going off, and do go off typically when they win these good or meaningful results, which they haven't had that many of, but they've had a few in the little outing we've seen from them. The Motum player was quite interesting because his spray seemed decent. He didn't seem like a super skilled player. Interestingly enough, he did seem, though, very committed to the team concept. Like, he was a guy who would push through, he would run, he would be the hard entry at times if you want. It seemed like he really has a lot of trust in the IGL or whatever strat they're running. So that's an angle, actually, I give him props for. I always find that those are the players that tend to be lacking in the scene, is players who will do that. But as a result, that also means he'll make some unusual pushes that, like a little bit Stewie 2K, but he's not Stewie 2K, so I don't know. I can certainly see how he works in this team, and I can appreciate to some degree what value they see in him. I just don't know that he's necessarily going to be a player at the level that you'd expect now Cloud9 to be competing at. Orsi is the player I find the most confusing in this team, because he's not the type of AWP you just give all the resources to and then he gets that sick opening pick and then you've got the round going, or on CT side just locks down a spot, killing people over and over again. He seems like an alright player. He seems decent enough. It's not, like I said, even the best AWP on the team, I would say. And one problem is when I went and looked up all the stats, the guy's an onliner. Like, he performs way better online than he does on LAN. He just has the odd good game online. And on LAN, people chew this guy the fuck up. So I was very skeptical of him as a player when I actually looked into the stats and watched his games. Then there's JT, who's the in-game leader. He's quite frankly what you'd expect from a bottom frag in-game leader. Put it this way, over the entire EPL season, he went minus 93. I mean, man alive. Like, this is a problem. And I have to say, when I look at him and I look at those stats, listen, within the context of the game, I think as he plays as an entry player and they've got a good T-side, I sort of see, well, in the context of their players, I sort of see how he's doing his job. And if the strats are coming from him, fair play. You probably need him to make that T-side work, in which case you need to remove other players. My issue was, this guy individually might be the worst player to ever play for Cloud9. So that's not a great thing when you're coming in with a line that already is a little bit underpowered and is already relying on gimmicky plays or fast attacks that have to be coordinated perfectly to work out, and then a couple of players have to go crazy. So one of the interesting things is the CT side is really lacking on this team. And I always say this, CT side comes in part from either communication, which is a component of team play, or it's got to come from individual skill. Like, obviously, FaZe Clan has had some amazing CT sides over the years without great communication or team play. Now, if you want to look into some examples of the problems this team has on CT side, well, I think they lack both skill overall and certainly look like communication-wise, they're not as coordinated as they are on the T side when they can prep everything and dry run everything. Here's some examples. So when they played Mouse Spots in the opening map of the EPL Season 10 finals, it was on Nuke. They won the first 6 rounds on CT side. Wow, maybe they're going to win this game. Surely double digits on CT. No. They won 7 of the first 8 rounds overall, and they ended with 7 rounds at the end of the CT half. Now, fair play, they got like 3 rounds on T half, but they actually lost without getting a double digits in the game. If you start 6-0 on CT side of Nuke and you're a good team, and you can play Nuke, because it's actually like a top 3, top 4 map for them, you should absolutely be getting a minimum double digits, if not having a really good chance to win that game. Like, you give a lot of other teams 6-0 start CT side, I'd go ahead and guess they're like, what, 75% to win the fucking game? Then you go and look at their play in the Americas Phase 1 and Phase 2 of EPL before the Season 10 finals. Remember, it's all offline in EPL, which is what's useful. We're not just going off one LAN. We've basically got a whole bunch of maps. Over Phase 1, where they were playing the good teams in their group, they got over, I think it was over, what was the stat? Something like, they only got over like, I think something like 7 CT rounds or something ridiculous like that, like once in 7 maps of play. Like, what the fuck is that? And these are NA teams. It seems that you, in theory, practice against them playing qualifiers. It's not like you've never played them. Like, you might be scared if you play Mouse Sports, oh fuck, or some of these other European teams you've never played before. Then they go to Phase 2, because they came 3rd overall. Phase 2 is where you play the worst teams, and where they actually won that group, because it was against people you won't even fucking know. In that group stage, even, they only got 10 CT rounds or more once in 7 maps. So CT side is a massive problem for these guys. The upside, though, that's a massive problem, by the way, going forwards if you're Cloud9. But going forwards, I will say this. A big positive of this team, especially relative to their level, is the amount of T rounds they get. And quite frankly, they rely on getting a lot of T rounds. So you go and look, when they were at the EPL finals, they got 8 T rounds on Overpass against North. In the same series, they got 12 T rounds on Vertigo, which was their pick. That's pretty legit. Then you go, obviously North has much better skill level than them. Then you go over to the game against G2 that they won. They got 11 T rounds on Train. Coming back, by the way, monster comeback when G2 basically looked like they were already up on map. They had the series won. They were up something crazy. Like, I think G2 like stomped the first map, and then the second map was up like, 12-5 or something, and probably thought, fucking hell, this series is done. Let's move on, right? And then they lost that map. Then the decider was Inferno. They got 10 T rounds there against G2. So that's all pretty legit. Again, G2, team with better skill than them. So those aspects I can fuck with. Problem is, when their T side deserts them, oh boy. So when they were playing in the last map of the tournament, which was the second map against Mouse Sports in the lower bracket, on Dust 2, obviously a map Mouse Sports loves, they did all right on the first half of the game, keyword all right, and then they got 0 T rounds on the T side. That is appalling. So you can see they really live and die by those T sides. In terms of the T sides, they do seem to be a team that has got the playbook and have put in a lot of effort there. So I can appreciate that angle, actually. They run a lot of like strats, real set players that seem to hit at a certain time. A lot of fast hits, by the way, which is a good way to play for your younger team, and especially a team that's inexperienced, hasn't got as many skilled players. Use coordinated hits on the same site at the same time. That what they would tend to do is burst onto the site, get the bomb down, get into position, get the bomb down, and then either lose the post plant or lose the initial gun duels to get the bomb down. So that was pretty legit. The problem is they can't play the way the top European teams tend to, which is you spread out as 5, you play off some defaults, you see who gets a pick here, you take an aim duel there, then you make a sick mid-round decision. They're not doing any of that shit. They're not doing any EG or Mouse Sports level shit. So actually, I thought a point that Maui Snake made to me was, I think I agree with it, which is, if you look at how they play, it's a bit like when Furia came up. Now, Furia was a bit more gimmicky outright, but the problem Furia had was, since people didn't understand their style or how they would play or how they would attack them, and especially a player like Art, what the fuck he was doing in the game, initially it worked. And then you know what happened after, and by the way, even then they were only winning with like opponent getting double digits. And then what happened is, the brains of the scene, I mean, my boy Existence literally solved them within something like a few weeks when they were at that Moche XL land. But everyone else looked at the demos, broke them down, and then what do you know? Since that team also lacked for some individual skill, once people had solved or found counters to neutralise their T side, all of a sudden they dropped off. Now, proportionally, this team isn't as good as Furia. So when they drop off, if they don't make roster moves, I think it's going to be drastic for Cloud9. This could be some really disappointing shit where this team like maybe gets one upset but then just goes out of the tournament in second to last place, as it were, and could have a whole bunch of placings where I don't think they're going to be a playoff team in any big land, quite frankly, that has the big teams in attendance. So fair enough. On that T side, that entry pack does its job. Motum, JT, Sonic, they seem to actually be fairly good when they're getting a broken round scenario, 3v4, 3v3. In terms of the map pool, their strongest map on LAN is Overpass, then it's Inferno. Now what's weird is that they permaban Mirage, because that's actually, if you go look at Sonic's career, that's like that guy's best map. But then again, that was also when he was an AWPer and he could go off on the CT side. So I've got to say, I'm just going to come right out and say, that's one of the reasons I really studied this team deeply. I didn't want to just be wishy-washy about this. After watching them, my professional opinion on them as a team is I don't get the hype. Listen, it's slightly cool that they have like the T sides and they have decent strats and they probably put in work to do that. Yeah, that's a nice storyline if this was a WB movie where you really hope that these young guys are going to make it and break into the pros. I don't give a fuck about that. It's not a WB movie. It's not a Disney movie. It's real life. And professional Counter-Strike isn't about the cool storylines of could these unknowns make it. It's about who are the best players, how are they doing, and can you beat them straight up with consistency. So at the EPL finals, let's look into the context of that tournament. And you'll see that actually it's not even that impressive overall placing. So 9th to 12th, hey, that's not bad, right? The 16 LAN teams there at that tournament. Hey, they placed ahead of some teams like FaZe or MIBR, some of these types of squads. Hey, that's fucking sick, bro. Yeah, but what you got to look at first and foremost is they were in the weaker group. They were in the group where the big names were Astralis, Mousesports, Team Liquid. Oh my God, top 5, top 6 teams. The other teams in that group was ATK themselves, G2, who've been mad underwhelming with this lineup, Renegades, not 100 Thieves, the one that's Greyhound, team that's barely ever done anything online, not a playoff team certainly, North, who shit the bed perennially and lost Blame F and Valde, no one gives a fuck about them anymore, and then Sharks, the Brazilian team that only does shit online as far as I'm concerned. That's a top-heavy group. Do you want to know what the other group was? The other group was Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, Na'Vi, 100 Thieves, FaZe. That's before I get to the weak teams. The weak teams was MIBR, Tyloo, Heroic. Are you fucking kidding me? The other group was, listen, I get how the top-heavy angle, if you do proper seeding, makes it fairer. The top teams should get the weaker teams. But the level of depth in Group A, as it were, was way more. I think practically every team, I think maybe they'd have a chance against Heroic. I think MIBR would beat them with experience. I think Tyloo's got too much skill. I don't think they could possibly beat EG, Fnatic, Na'Vi, 100 Thieves. I don't think even FaZe. So I think they wouldn't have gotten out of the other group, and this result would not have happened. Then let's look who they did beat. They beat the Bad North. Yeah, that team that no one gives a fuck about. And everyone thought when they just changed all the graphics recently, hopefully they killed the whole team. They beat a bad G2, the one that just occasionally has the odd good Dust 2 game. And aside from that, it's mad underwhelming, despite actually some of their players being able to frag out of not terrible stats. Then you look at the series against G2. Here's how it went. G2 stomped map 1. The map pick of the guys from fucking ATK, which was Vertigo. Then, on G2's map pick of Train, G2 goes up 6-0 as Terrorist on Train. Remember, in theory, that's a CT-sided map. So G2 goes up 6-0 on Terrorist. They actually go 10-4 up. Then they win the pistol on the CT side. They're up 12-5. Now then, fair play to these guys from ATK. They had a lot of grit. They fought back. They strung together tons of rounds. They got the game to 13-13. Eventually they won, I think, 16-13. So at that point in time, though, let's be real. If you're G2... mentally, you've let your foot off the pedal. You've smashed them first map. You're up 12-5 on the second. You don't know who the fuck these guys are. And you're just going to roll into the next round, right? But once you get to the decider, fair enough. That was a legit result. I said 10 T rounds on Inferno. That's legit. That was a big performance. Despite the fact, yes, G2 is perennially underwhelming with the last few lineups. Then they go against Mousesports after those big wins. Wow, how did they do there? Remember, they played Mousesports once already in that nuke opener. They've had a little bit of a chance to get a feel of what they're like. They could have watched some of their demos. But you know what? So could Raging and Carragher for Mousesports. And Mousesports wrecked them even harder. They didn't really give them a whole lot of a chance. They dominated them when they were on CT side and made their T sides way less effective. On their own T sides, they easily got the rounds they needed to. Here's a few stats for you. In 4 of the 8 maps they played at the EPL Season 10 finals, ATK did not reach double digits round 1. Then they picked in 3 of their series Vertigo as their map. They only beat North on it. They lost to G2 and Mouse on it. Then you go and consider, in the EPL Phase 1 and 2, the phase before the finals, they got shit on by all the good teams. Big time shit on. Their only wins were against the lesser teams, teams on their level or teams you'd consider bad. And many of those were close, quite frankly, when they did win them. Some of them going 3 maps. It took a lot. Just as in some of these other games, it took a lot. So my problem with this team is this. I think Sonic's solid. I think he probably deserves a place in a team of the caliber, I don't know, of Cloud9. I'd maybe give him a shot. Floppy has potential. He just hasn't yet developed it yet against the top teams, which is a big issue because it's going to make the first lands very pressure-filled. But I could see that maybe he could come along in 6 months and be legit. Motum and Orsi, they're just role players. I mean, when you're fucking AWP, you're not a role player. That'll never just be a role. So I'd take the AWP off that guy immediately. So I can sort of see how Motum's working in the T-side entry aspect. I still don't think he's a good enough player overall. OC, though, he would be my first cut if I was removing a player and I could get a better player at Fragger. JT, as I said, he has legit terrible stats, but he seems like he's possibly a decent IGL. It's just, in the context of being Cloud9, imagine if you just kept Daps. He'd love a team like this with an entry pack already fully formed he can play with. They've got half-decent map pool. Half-decent is the key word there. I feel like someone like Daps could have worked wonders with some of these players. You still need to get some of the fraggers in. Strat-heavy team, right? So I can sort of see why Cloud9 was considering, like, yeah, they have a tactical approach. They have some teamwork on the T side. Like, Sonic looks decent. Like, Floppy some potential. You're really hoping and praying for the others, though, and it's probably unrealistic. I'll also say as well, I sort of also get one angle, which is the average age of the team is 20 years old. So you're also thinking, well, you know, they're young. Like, that's a lot younger than you'd usually expect for a lot of teams. My problem is this. It's Cloud9. Like, you guys won a major, like, 2 years ago. It was right around now, 2 years ago, you won a major. You had some of the best players in NA in your team. You've got among the most resources. You have some of the best sponsorship deals. You have some of the most investment money. So my problem is this. Why did it ever even come to this of getting ATK? Why doesn't this Cloud9 lineup have the players that are now evil geniuses, one of the best teams in the world, won tournaments? Why doesn't this Cloud9 team have 100 Thieves, one of the most consistent teams in the world, a Legends team, a team that looks like they can be top 10 for the next year if they keep playing, even though they have a slightly underpowered lineup? Still better than this team, obviously. I get maybe why you didn't go for OG and those big names there, because they probably don't want to live in NA, right? I get that angle. That's the same reason Alexi B wouldn't go to Complexity no matter how much he was offered. There's another angle, though. You had some players in Cloud9 could have made this team actually a better than expected by the names on paper team now. Imagine if you'd kept Daps and you kept Automike and then you kick out OC, you kick out JT, and then you have this team running then. Now you've got some potential. Now I'd actually be mildly excited for that. Or if you're not going to keep those players, why didn't you sign some of the big names, the Genjis, the Coles got? Why don't you get Bente? Why didn't you get Poison? Why don't you get Blame F, Config? These are big players that you could have brought over, and already we'd be talking. I mean, I hope, by the way, this is one thing I'll also give credit to the ATK squad, is that they didn't just stick when they were bravado with those players and just say, no, at least they understood there's no point staying with all those players. Like, most of them will never make it. Most of them aren't even good anyway. And we're not going to do the Renegades mistake of playing for like 2 or 3 years until we finally change out some players and then actually become good because we've got in the right mix of players. So the only player from the Bravado past I hope they would even vaguely consider bringing in, and quite frankly I'd hope you'd just go for bigger names because he's Cloud9 now, is the Black Poison guy. Seemed like after Sonic he had some decent skills. Death Throny guy I thought was a bit overrated. The rest of them I don't give a fuck about, quite frankly. So I don't think this is a very good team, quite frankly. I think even though their only one result was kind of, I won't say it's a total fluke, but it was an overperformance. I also didn't think it was that good in context. I think once you put all the context in, it's really not that good at all. I think this is mad underwhelming from Cloud9. I'm a bit disappointed, even though when I looked into it, it's not quite as bad as it initially seemed, but it's bad. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Dane Cuskley, Dean Tanglis, Chi Mao, JDubs, NateDOhDoubleG, Peter the Feeder, Tobias Bernasconi, and a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion and Mohammed, Alabdul, Razzaq. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you'd like to ask me a question in my monthly Patreon AMA. Would you like teasers on upcoming content that I'm doing? Maybe you want to take part in a discussion directly with me? Well, if so, then put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description below.